Hey guys, so just thought I'd pause here for a second and show you what I'm doing. As you can see, this side is ground so that the ridge is relatively central. It's a little wavy at the moment, but that's okay because I can finish that in the other grits. And obviously this side is unfinished at the moment, unground. And the reason I wanted to have the juxtaposition is because, as you can see, I didn't have to put a lot of effort into finding where my bevel was because I hand beveled first off. And if your hand beveling is nice and clean, then basically all you have to do is step up to the grinder and push in. And the bevel finds the angle for you. I was making a few minor adjustments, and that's why it's a little bit squiggly. I've got a little bit of forged scale in a couple of spots on the bevel, but that's all going to come out when I do the final grits. This is nowhere near its finished thickness. This is quite thick. So yeah, anyway, that's the unground side. That's the pre-ground side, pre-finished for heat treating. So now I'm just going to do the same to that side and we can get on with it. So, as you can see, I've now finished ground the blade. I wanted to take a quick minute before I get on to the engraving just to point out the difference between a blunt belt and a sharp belt finish. Halfway through, obviously the belt was getting quite blunt, so and you could tell by the amount of heat that it was putting out into the blade, creating these purple spots where it would have detempered in the event that it was that it had been heat treated. But obviously because this is pre-heat treat grinding, I don't have to worry about it being detempered or anything like that. But because it was getting blunt to the point that I couldn't remove sufficient material, I switched over to a sharp belt, and you can see that the lines are much crisper, much cleaner. And this is really important for when you come to the post-heat treat grinding. So once you've heat treated your blade, you really want to be able to remove material without putting in too much heat, and you don't want your blade ending up looking like this after the heat treat. So a fresh belt is really important. I wish I didn't have to use the fresh belt for pre-heat treat grinding, purely because I want the sharp belts to be able to do this after the heat treat, but it was really important that I got this down to the final dimensions, especially in here where I'm going to do the engraving before heat treat, because engraving a hardened blade is next to impossible. Anyway, so the next thing you'll see me doing is the engraving. Cheers. Okay guys, so I've just outlined the rough kind of idea of what I want to engrave with a Sharpie. Obviously there's not the finished thicknesses of the overall lines, but what I'm going to do is use them as a kind of guide. Now one of my viewers in my last video asked about the geometry on my gravers, and basically what you're creating, I'm not sure if it's going to show up in the camera very well. Yeah, there we go. You can see that it's sort of a triangle shape. This point here is the point that's going to be in the work. So that point is going to be doing the graving for me. And if you can see from the nose, just Catch the hammer. You can see from the nose that it's got quite a steep angle going to that point. Alright, so it's beveled to create a triangle, and then beveled to create a slight point. The angle on this, they normally say nominally about 60 degrees is a good angle. This other graver, again, you've got that triangular sort of cross section. This one's slightly rounded because I've hand shaped this one, and again it's got that kind of very steep bevel on it to clear the chip. So yeah, anyway, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start laying in my basic lines. I'm not going to be going too deep on the first pass, and then I'll probably deepen it up a little bit because I do have to do some finish grinding after this, after heat treat. Again, I'm doing the engraving before I do the heat treat because otherwise I wouldn't be able to I wouldn't be able to grave it after without rotary tools. So there you go. There is the finished engravings. Obviously I'm not a professional engraver. These are some of the, well actually these are the first engravings that are ever going on a piece that I'm actually selling. I've had a couple of slips. Not too worried about those because they're all fairly light. And when I do my finish grinding at the higher grits, they will come out. But yeah, overall I'm pretty happy with the shape. I probably need to adjust my my set out in future to get those more in line. There's just a tiny little bit of offset between those two. But yeah, overall fairly happy with it. So next step is going to be heat treat. Now there will be some people who know a little bit about heat treating that will know that these could be potential heat stress risers. Stress risers meaning that the material, because it thins drastically at the point around these engravings, means that there's a chance that when I quench, these are going to create a crack in the blade. Now I'm going to do 3 normalizing cycles like I normally do, which is heating to the critical temperature at which the carbon in the steel becomes in a semi-liquid state in the iron matrix, and then let them cool naturally in still air to room temperature. And what that does is it brings the large grain size from all of the grinding and all of the forging that I've done and shrinks those down to a more manageable size. It'll also improve the steel's quality overall as a knife. Hi guys, thanks for watching. Unfortunately I didn't get to the heat treating in this series of the video, but I will do the heat treating in the next part and do the preliminary fitting of the guard onto the blade. So I'm pretty happy with how far it's come so far. Obviously I've got both sides ground, as you saw before, and I've now got the engraving done. I'm really happy with how it's coming along. It is a pretty big challenge, seeing as this is the longest blade I've ever made, and it's also a dagger grind on a full tapered blade, which makes it very interesting. But the distal taper is nice, and overall it looks pretty nice. I like it. Anyway, if you could like the video, that would be really appreciated, as well as if you haven't already, please subscribe. If you do want to subscribe and see all of my videos, I normally upload weekly on Wednesdays. You just need to hit that bell icon, because without it, unfortunately, YouTube may not let you know when I upload my next video. Also, if you have any suggestions for my channel, I always take things on board. Please feel free to comment, even if it's just to say hi. I always like to hear from my subscribers, and I respond to every comment. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one, guys.